What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. We are live, back in action. Sorry for the tech difficulties. I'll let Ray confess if he'd like to. Real simple here. All we're trying to do, help each other make progress on our goals as men. Mr. Ray, what's going on, brother? Can you hear me?
I put in the headphones to see if that would fix the reverb. We good?
I think we're good, buddy.
Right on, man. What are you drinking?
Earl Grey tea, my favorite. And as everybody knows, I'm going to invite some random dudes up on here, especially the new guys. It's an absolute honor to have you on here. Don't feel like you have to succumb to the pressure and coming onto the hot seat here. We'd love to have you. I do think it's the best way of getting the most out of the group, so we can go into any individual circumstance that you have, et cetera, get your opinion on what we're talking about. But I know it can be a bit of a daunting thing, so don't feel bad if you don't want to come on. So I will invite you guys. Just decline or don't answer the invite. That's totally cool. Also, out of respect for you, whoever comes up on board, these things are obviously posted on YouTube, so just keep that in mind. If you ever happen to say anything that you don't like, just let me know. We can literally, edit that out, or we can delete the entire episode. So we want to take your guys, how would you say it? We want to respect your boundaries first and foremost. So anyway, Mr. Ray, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. I'm doing very scary, accounting, and conquering my fears. These kind of things are always much worse in the imagination, in the avoidance than they are in practice. So, yeah, I'm just trying to get myself up to date with taxes, and that'll unlock a whole bunch of things in terms of government grants and different incentives. So looking forward to that. And so that's my day. Drinking my Rhomas smoothie, which includes Indian gooseberry, ginger, turmeric, and some cruciferous vegetables. Do you want to remind me what the health benefits are of the Indian gooseberry, ginger, and turmeric?
Yeah, the most antioxidant compound on earth, naturally occurring. Makes the whole drink taste like complete shit, but yeah.
Very dusty high notes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's dive into, if you're cool with it. You mentioned you're going through taxes and finances, et cetera, and I think a lot of the guys would benefit from that. Our relationship to the work in general, but then our relationship with some the more stressful type of work. And I feel like a lot of guys can receive feel a lot of stress around money. And especially if we let the problems accrue, then man, just because that compounding, literally takes place, especially if you have creditors and so on, to a degree that's very hard for the human brain to fathom. So I'm going to invite a few guys up here to talk about this particular topic. But Ray, I don't know if you're comfortable enough with talking about your situation, et cetera, what you're going through right now, but I'd love to hear it.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. It's better to deal with a small fire before it becomes a big fire. And I mean, it's easy to say that, but sometimes you have to start a few big fires in life before. I mean, almost always you have to screw up and realize the consequences in order to change the behavior for the better, right? That's just the way we are. We got to hit a rock bottom. We've got to run up debt before we realize how important personal finance is. So, yeah, I'm dealing with a big fire. And it's as it turns out, of course, it's not nearly as scary for me today I as I thought it would be in the constant putting it off. Yeah, so deal with this fire while it's a small fire instead of letting it become a big fire. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And Daniel and Brendan, welcome to the hot seat, brothers. Daniel, let me throw it over to you if you're down for it, man. And like I said, feel free to share or to not share, because I know this particular topic can be pretty jarring for people. So, if you don't mind sharing your perspective, your relationship with money, does it give you stress? Do you feel like you're ahead of the game, at pace, or behind the game, et cetera? Or just any general comments to whatever degree you're comfortable. And I think you might be on me. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It's a great question. So it's so loaded, right? I mean, I think it's hard to feel. Maybe I'm just revealing my situation, but I think it's hard to feel like you're ahead of the game, even if like statistically you're ahead of the game. I spent a lot of my 20s just kind of fucking off, and I've spent the last several years kicking myself in the ass for having fucked off so hard. All things considered, like, I've put in a lot of work and I'm in a pretty good place, but I think I have an expanding horizons problem where, when I was younger, I definitely didn't listen to it much, but like, as you acquire more, I think you get an increased sensitivity to protecting what you already have, which kind of incentivizes you to acquire more from there. And so finding that balance between like, how much of my soul do I want to give up for material security is an equation I'm balancing a lot.
You mind if we go a little deeper into that? You cool with that?
Sure.
So, because I think, first of all, Ray, I don't know about you, but Daniel, I don't mean to say this to stroke your ego, but the amount of times where I'm like, where I sit back and think it's like, wow, man, like the new guy to the team just said something profound, and it wasn't that I wasn't expecting it, right? It's just like, as we all go through our journeys as men, you start to realize these pretty archetypal patterns, and then you hear somebody like Daniel articulate it in a way it's like, yeah, that's spot on, man. Daniel, if you don't mind me asking, where are we finding you from, brother? Where are you at right now?
I'm in my car, outside of my office. More specifically, or less specifically, I'm in Florida.
Cool. Awesome. Hell yeah. So, number one, I've noticed to a lot. Yeah, that's where Ray frequently stalks Mark Wahlberg at some sort of fancy ass resort. Yeah, one time. Yeah. So, Daniel, I think you're bringing up a really common point. So I work in my industry is wealth management, et cetera. So like I'm literally in the business of money, and it's amazing. The bottleneck is often the psychology. 100%. So you actually articulated a very common pattern, which is like, hey, I'm kicking myself for the past. And then what I have noticed is actually it almost forces the pendulum to swing the other way. So what I have noticed, and Daniel, I'm not saying this is you, but I've noticed this for sure as a pattern. I'm kicking myself in the past. So now I'm going to over-index on like saving as much as possible, or I'm going to repeat the same patterns of the past, but beat myself up for it simultaneously. So those are like the two modes I've seen. And then another pattern that you're articulating, which I also think is spot on, is how the psychology can sort of migrate over time of like, once you do start accumulating some sort of assets or cash in the bank, et cetera, or making a bit of money, you can almost start to get the speed wobbles a little bit, right? It can either like make you like over-index on like, being a miser and just like gripping in your paws and then not taking the risks that you kind of were probably open to taking when you had nothing, because the risk was relatively low because there was nothing to put on the table to risk. And it just gets people in this awkward position. So I appreciate you sharing. If you had to give yourself a score of 0 to 10, completely knowing that it's subjective, but there is a bit of objectivity to it because money is countable. Where would you say you land on a scale of 0 to 10? Like 10 being defined as like, if you operating on all cylinders in the trajectory of where you want to go. Not that if your goal is to be a billionaire, you're a billionaire right now, but do you think you're on the path of where your North Star goal would be financially?
Yeah, that's a great one, because so here's what I'm weighing right now is how on track I am for my financial goals versus how on track I am for my financial goals in doing what I would like to be doing to make that money. So I think I'm at myself probably a 7.5. I think I'm pretty on track. I'm at least living out some of the things that I thought were professional dreams earlier in my life, and those goals shifted. And of course, when you're like, I want to be an X, Y, or Z, like the glamour and the wishing goes away quickly. So I do appreciate what I do, but it's never as sexy as what you think it was going to be. So yeah, I think pretty high up there, but I have some moving goalposts, and financially we're comfortable, although I'm looking for ways to get more security, but we're certainly not having to live paycheck to paycheck. And I don't know how much is oversharing here, so I don't want to go.
There's no oversharing, dude. There's no oversharing, and that's the
just ask ASB.
Yeah, one of the pillars of our group here, Rob Bogart, he says the 3 F's you never learn about are in school or growing up are finance, fitness, and feelings, right? We kind of like, it's not covered in school. Parents don't really talk about it. And so part of Wes's mission is to kind of pull back the curtain on these subjects, right? And that it's like there's no shame or embarrassment or oversharing really when it comes to any of those, fitness, finances, or feelings, because we want to together become Jedi masters of those subjects, right? And Wes, something else that comes to mind is the holistic definition of success, right? Because Daniel said, I might be meeting my financial targets, but am I doing it at the job that I want to be doing? Am I doing it at the game I want to be playing for the rest of my life? Maybe not. And so do you want to riff on that for him in terms of like, for building wealth is something a game we can play into our 90s, right? Yeah. And then where that fits into the broader holistic definition of success that we talk about in this group.
Yeah. So I think there's a pattern in life that is really fascinating. And Daniel, I think you hit it spot on. I would actually argue that, when we started as kids, we want to be like astronauts and NBA basketball players, something like that. And then as we kind of go throughout, probably like until like, our, let's say late teens, early 20s, et cetera, we find that those 2 or 3, I would say pretty theatrical versions of a career kind of fall off a cliff, because it's like, well, if you're not in the NBA by the age of 22, right, like you're not going. And if you didn't pass your, if you didn't even qualify to take physics in high school, right, like you're not going to become an astronaut, that sort of thing. But I would actually push against that, because I think those anomalies tend to be extrapolated over to like, oh, well, I just got to accept my lot in life. I'm just going to be an accountant, or whatever. And I wish those anomalies were taken off the table, because I don't know. I would actually argue that the majority of those anomalies, most people who as a child wanted to pursue them end up actively deciding they don't want to pursue them. It's like probably along the course of time, you learn that being an astronaut, it's like, I don't want to do that, right? Like I get nauseous when I go on like a roller coaster one time. Like I don't want to be in a spaceship, right? It's going to make me throw up for a month. So if we can almost take those out of the equation, because I think it takes a lot of guys off of their true games. And I personally think life is about playing. Imagine you have a huge dinner table and you put your board games on that dinner table. I don't think there's infinite space to play 35 board games, but there's space to play 6 games, like 5, like I call it my core 5 games. And that's where I wish guys would like almost meet their inner child and say, hey, get back to what you know now, but also with that childhood, like kind of like twinkle in your eye of like of living without boundaries, knowing what you know now, what would you fucking do, right, to maximize your output? Because Daniel, I think you're spot on, bro. Like you could be on track for your money game, but if it's in a job that you don't like, I could tell you the end game of that, because I a lot of my clients, you know, at least a portion of them have that, right? And it's like, then they're looking for fulfillment, and every single one of them would tell you and I, hey, don't divorce fulfillment from your money game as much as possible. Now, what that might mean is you might have to work at the Starbucks to make money, and then do a podcast on the side, or do whatever on the side. Not make any money for a long time. In fact, I just watched a Joe Rogan skit that I sent to Ray a couple of days ago. Daniel, let me ask you this. How many years do you think it took Joe Rogan to make any money from his podcast, knowing that 2 years ago he signed $100 million contract with Spotify? Sorry, this fucking I got to turn that off every time one of those fucking emojis goes. So I know I got to turn it off. Anyway, Daniel, if you had to guess, how many years do you think it took Joe Rogan to make any money, like literally any money, right, knowing that he made $100 million from Spotify a couple years ago?
Man, I don't even know how long his podcast has been running. I'm just going to throw out 10 years.
Oh, so 5 years, zero capital. And then I imagine, right, like it sort of incrementally increased from there, and then hit an exponential curve. So it's like we're talking about arguably the best podcast in the world, like the most followed podcast in the world, that made $0 for him for 5 years. And that's just crazy to think about. Now, I also think the dirty little secret behind it, in a good way, is he was also planting seeds for decades prior in other career veins, with comedy, with fear actor, being an actor, Fear Factor, etc. So I think it's actually a pretty good structure to follow. Like, hey, go and make your money where you're making it now. But then why not, to use the cliche thing, why not have a side gig, a side hustle that really taps into the vein of passion? Daniel, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I always love hearing stories of affirmation. It mirrors my life pretty closely. You know, it reminds me when I was serving tables, however many years ago, I remember running into this guy. I wanted to be a writer. I ran into this guy. I was working in fine-ish dining. I ran into this guy who was a historical fiction writer, and I'd never heard of him, so I kind of blew him off at the time because I was a young prick. But he talked to me about like the struggle it took, and he was like, you know, the line I remember him saying was, "You've got to make your money. Like you have to survive. You can't just like forsake everything and dive into this thing when you're not making anything." Because I think that's for whatever reason, maybe it's because we love the story of the genius or whatever it is, but our cultural narrative is like, you know, if you're not dropping everything and pursuing this one like tunnel vision passion, like you're not really serious about it, and you're not really willing to do what it takes to get it. So fuck you, don't try if you're not willing to like sacrifice your wife and child at the altar of whatever you're about to embark on. So yeah, I really like the like you're saying, the 5 core games. I like having a few irons in the fire, because I think it also keeps you from becoming a dull person. I don't want to only talk to my wife about leadership management training for the rest of our lives, you know?
Mm-hmm. Dude, I just had this conversation. So we just went on our retreat recently, a little men's retreat. And just real quick, hey, Brendan, if you can still hear me, I'm not sure if you decided to go off. That's totally cool if you did. If you want to come back on, let me know. I'm not sure if like for some reason the tech was just kicked you off.
No, Wes, he's saying like the son overheated his device and he had to
got it. Okay, cool.
Seek shelter, Dorothy, like in the storm cellar.
Yeah. But dude, Daniel, literally, man, that's pretty profound, because I know that if I just focus, let's say 3 of my games are on the career genre, you know. Yeah. If I were to narrow 2 or 3 of those down to 1, I'd be bored. right? And therefore I'd not be engaging. I would not be motivated, right? Like I'm not a fucking robot. And I agree with you. I think because some of the top of the funnel stories are like, oh yeah, I mortgaged the house, I moved into my van, and then I created the next Facebook because that's what it took. First of all, I think those stories are oftentimes like over dramatized. And I think number two, it's like that narrative contains way more in the graveyard than it does in actual success versus like the person who incrementally builds. So I like sustainable games like the Joe Rogans of the world, et cetera, where you have all of these things compounding and accumulating under the surface that, by the way, are intrinsically motivating. So you're already getting the reward simultaneously. And then one day it pops, but I think it's almost like this staggered approach. Like, hey, you have your job here, you're making money, and this thing doesn't make any money. Then all of a sudden, boom, this thing makes money. I could tell you the same for Matt McCusker. He would not mind me telling you this. Like, dude, what he had to do, side gigs, painting gigs, landscaping, construction, all of this stuff, demolition, et cetera. And that's where he's making his capital. And then the podcasting was making like literally zero. And then all of a sudden, boom, and then boom, and boom, 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 right? And then he can quit this thing over here. But then, as you guys notice, he likes to write. He likes to create the other thing. I can't tell too much about his projects right now, but he's doing all these other things that are not making any dollars, like zero. Him and I talk about it often. $0. But I almost guarantee you, right, that in the next 6 months to a year, that's going to be the thing for him. And it's just like on this staggered ladder approach. But let me throw it over here. Daniel, meet Daniel. Daniel, you're raising your hand, brother. Introduce yourself if you don't mind. I think you might be on mute because we can't hear you, brother. For some reason, you're on mute. Yeah, if you can, try to fix that and we'll.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. All right. So we'll say we got Daniel D and then Daniel M. Daniel M, introduce yourself, brother. Where are you from? And let's.
Dude, I'm off 4 hours of sleep right now. I just wanted to make sure I got in here at some point. I should have came in weeks prior, but whatever, dude. I decided to set an early alarm, make sure I got in here. AK numbers on YouTube, if anybody's wondering. YouTube and Twitch. God, I'm like so tired. I'm going to be incoherent. I just wanted to mention something about like being the billionaire success story that you kind of like see online and fucking living in your van or whatever. Just like everything else online, that's going to be like over embellished, kind of like either way. Everything online that's just trying to get like your attention, it's more so fake. In reality, just kind of like doing it and putting it out there the same way that you do with this Men's Team podcast. It's not really about the viewers or the monetization. It's about making the content that you want to see. And like when you go online in the morning and you want to look up a video, you should be looking up the exact video that you want to see. And if it's not there, then you should make that video. And I'm not saying that to everybody because some people don't want to do YouTube at all. But at the same time, most people aren't even going to get up and try it. So just being there, you're already ahead of everybody else. And you'll see after a year or two of just showing up, you'll always get results, even if they're not the results that you see online, because most of the time, go watch a Cali Muscle video. Most of the time, the results you see online are just people faking it. They're either cheating, they were ahead of the game already. Like you're looking at people that you shouldn't be comparing yourself to, because I don't know about you guys. I never started off financially great. I had to make everything that I had in my entire life myself. And thankfully I had a great family around to support me. There's a lot of people who don't have anything, and you have to, those people that are really watching that don't start out with anything in life, man, you can't compare yourself to everybody else. Life is just all about finding yourself and your own happiness. Don't focus on finances. Don't focus on what everybody else is doing. If you're happy at the end of the day and healthy, I got to preach that too. Don't just focus on happiness solely, but, try to keep your life straight, try to keep yourself straight. And at the end of the day, dude, money doesn't matter, bro. Like, if you're happy, you're happy. I'm happy that everybody's here, bro. Like, I don't care how much money you have.
Thank you for carrying that message, man. Wes, we talked about that, right? Like, I love that little nugget Daniel just gave us where, and maybe I wasn't even thinking about this way before, like look online for the video you want to see. And if it's not there, create it. Because Wes, you talk about this a lot, like the chances that you're the only person out of 7 billion who wants to see that content it's statistically
zero.
impossible.
It's zero.
Exactly. So, Wes, what you want to riff on that? Create the content that you wish was there.
Well, and I would almost like to evolve this, if it's okay, like as a real life example. I mean, how many of us know we have an itch to scratch and know that it for sure would be valuable for somebody else if we scratched that itch and shared the process? Even just shared the fucking failures. Hey, I tried to solve this problem I had and I failed, right? Just like Thomas Edison, but let me share how I failed with you. And I'm still committed to the journey. I mean, dude, the amount of times where us men, we don't share because of whatever fear gets in the way. And if we're getting like real, it's like 9 times out of 10, it's like how we're going to look to other people, right? Like that's like 90% of the pie chart. At least that is for me. So Daniel, Daniel D, let me throw the ball back over to you. If you don't mind being a little vulnerable here, if you were already a billionaire, right, what would that thing be? But it's not, I'm just going to go and sip martinis on a beach somewhere. It's like, oh, I would contribute to other people in this way. What would that answer be?
You're not asking about like, where would I put my money, right? You're asking what
correct. What would you do? Let's say for a craft, for a career, what would you do if you were already independently wealthy?
Man, that's so hard. I think I probably would sorry, I'm torn all over the place. Like,
this guy would be a professional surfer, dude.
If you look in my journal from like 2 years ago, I'm just like I sound like a 7-year-old who's wearing a suit. Like I want to be a lawyer, a philosopher, and a psychologist, and a writer. And so if I was independently wealthy, those are the things I'd be pursuing.
Fuck yeah. So let me
Jordan Peterson comes to mind.
Sorry.
So like I'm thinking like the person who actually lives that is Jordan Peterson, right? Which means it's possible. Which means which is to say it's possible rather than you're not good enough to do that. Like, right? It's like it's out of reach. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying like I instantly thought of someone who actually does that. So that's not a crazy thing to reach for.
Yeah, and I think that the kernel in there, the moment of vulnerability is like, I think it's so tempting, especially in our current climate, to kind of keep your opinions and your ideas in line in a certain lane, and to deviate outside those lanes. Let's just say put it on YouTube, is pretty scary. Like even what Daniel M mentioned, like, or kind of what the theme of this has been about it. Like, I think there's something you're preemptively recognizing rejection, even if you like have 2 viewers, right? If you put yourself out there and like no one looks at it.
Let me mention something. I've been doing YouTube for 12 years now. Just this month, I finally got my first any type of success. I'm going to get monetized hopefully very soon. But I've been doing YouTube for 12 years, man. 12 years. This month I got 30,000 views. That doesn't sound like a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot at all. But look, I got 0 views for 12 years straight. 0 views for 12 years, bro.
30,000, man.
Just dealing with people leaving. Okay, dude. 12 years of comments, just hate comments, bro. And being like, should I keep making videos? Should I just like completely quit this? And now all of these people that have been leaving hate comments for fucking 10 plus years, I'm about to get a paycheck straight from them, bro. Personally from them, straight to me. And that's the best part, bro. Fuck them, dude. They can all suck a dick. The haters literally are the motivation, dude.
They're your most loyal fans.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah, and Daniel D, what I would add to it, man, is like, we now literally, our ancestors would have killed for this. And last generation would have killed for this, where you can now share, like, your value back to society can just be the sharing of the path of progress on that thing. Right? Before, it was not practical. You couldn't do it unless you like went under a corner, right, and shouted about it. But now you can open up, a YouTube channel, a podcast, whatever you want, and it does, and I agree with Daniel M. It doesn't have to be through the lens of the internet. I would highly recommend it. But man, I have found like this group to be exponentially rewarding to me. Right? Like I will do this for the rest of my life, as I told Ray. That because
and before,
it's so
Wes, that's before any monetization. Before, are you getting one viewer or a million viewers? Right? It's just the practice.
Yeah, and if you can really get married to your core tribe, hey, I'm doing this so I can do my part as one of the tribes people in a circle, not a triangle. And I don't know if that helps anybody, but for my mindset, that gives me infinite motivation, right? What can I do to contribute to those who I want to contribute to? And you just do that for enough times, and all of a sudden it takes off, like Daniel M is saying.
Let me mention
Brendan,
one more thing. I'm going to hop out of here so
please.
you can throw somebody else in here. But, dude, I think society sees all people, and as men, we amplify this on ourselves with, like, insecurities. Society inherently sees all people as lazy, and you literally, this way you asked Daniel D what he'd do if he had $1 million. Most people, if they had $1 million, as much as a lot of people would just not do anything, they'd take the martini on the beach. A lot of people would wake up every day and be so bored with $1 million that they would find themselves in a position of making value for someone else, even if, like, they would do what Matt does. They'd be like, all right, even though I've got this path of success, even though I got this path, I'm going to just do this other thing because it makes me happy, which maybe in the end will make him more money. But at the end of the day, it's really not about money, guys. It's about providing some type of value to your neighbor, whatever it is. And that's all we can do as society. Hopefully everybody starts doing that soon and we all start loving each other as humans, or this planet's going to fall the fuck apart. But this is a good step in the right direction, dude. Groups like this where people, get together and actually socialize again. We got to do this in real life sometime, bro. Hopefully within like the next year or so, you guys get like a in-person Rhomas men's team. You guys get on stage, you and fucking Matt McCusker with mics. That'd be sick. But yeah, either way, I'm going to let somebody else come in here, dude. I'm exhausted.
Daniel M., hey, I appreciate it. And just real quick, where'd you say you're tuning in from?
I'm from New York.
Okay, hell yeah. Awesome. What part of New York, dude, if you don't mind me asking? Okay, I was just there.
Well, I'm in Toronto, dude, so yeah, I'm in Toronto, so not far.
Wes, how far are you from the East Coast if you guys did a in-person show?
So I fly back pretty frequently. I was just in New York. That's why I was asking you. I was in Hudson Yards, Brooklyn, and Soho. But I come back pretty frequently. So yeah, let's set it up. I would love to do it, and I'll get Matt on board. He was actually supposed to come out to New York with me for a little while, but his shows kind of messed the schedule up. So yeah, we're going to set it as a goal and make it happen.
Sounds good.
Hell yeah,
nice
brother.
talking
Thanks,
to you guys,
Daniel, and for coming on, bro.
Yeah, thank you for letting me on, bro. I really appreciate it.
Oh, hell yeah, man. And congrats on the success, dude. 30,000 views. Fuck yeah. So, Brendan, let me throw the ball over to you, bud. Comments on this, and feel free to, if you're feeling particularly vulnerable today, what's your story? What's going on there in the genre of career and money, or just comment on the general stuff we've been talking about so far?
Yeah. First, I'll introduce myself, Brendan. I'm calling in from the Jersey Shore, a little beach town called Manasquan. I'm an open book. My information's all over the internet, so I don't care if it gets out. Yeah, so a lot that you guys have been talking about is something that I have a nightly reflection with myself about. In a position where I am seeing money, I'm starting to feel a little bit comfortable. One thing I do run into is, I think Daniel D touched upon it, was being more risky with money. I think it was more of Daniel looking back and wishing he saved more, while I look back and think, man, I should have, been more risky with investments. And for years now, I've been scared to buy a house or to move forward with it, because I was always thinking, at some point, something can happen in the market. I work in sales in particular, so there's always worrying about the next season that comes in, the ebbs and flows. You could be in the flow and decide to start buying a home, buying cars, whatnot. The next year you hit a rough patch, and now you're, I've seen it happen to my father. So now I'm realizing, with inflation and whatnot, looking back, and okay, I should have, looked more into in making investments as things have gotten a lot more expensive. I'm shopping for houses still. You know, I'm in a rental right now, and where I've always wanted to live has gotten to the point where it's very hard to afford in the Northeast. And you know, luckily I get to work from home, but my family is here in at the shore, and that's who I want to be around. And you know, when it comes to the end of the with working, how hard you want to, you know, work and dedicate your life to a 9 to 5 or whatnot. You know, I want to be surrounded by my family. My father is in a long-term care facility. You know, moving away, I wouldn't be able to see him. So every financial decision I make really comes down to, you know, my family, and not just my children, but also, you know, my siblings and my parents. Where will they be? And keeping them close.
Brendan, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Go ahead. Yeah, like I said, I'm an open book. If you look me up, you'll probably find a lot of information about me. I'm not a famous person at all. I've just been open on the internet as a, you know, a salesperson myself. I try to keep myself pretty open to prospects and whatnot.
Hell yeah. I would be curious, because as I look back on my own personal investments, and that's my career. You know, one thing, if I had to do it over again, is I would invest even more on myself and my skills. And I invested a shitload. But I think I spent $150,000 on my college education. Honestly, I wish I would have, if I were to do it over again, I would match that 150 with other courses and groups, etc. So I'd spend an equal amount. You know, because earlier on in my career, I probably spent another 30, 40 grand on, like, whether it be like real estate classes or like sales classes, or Matt and I, funny enough, took improv comedy class, and all these other things. I wish I would have quadrupled it, if that makes sense. Brendan, do you notice any of that in your own journey, especially being in sales? Because sales requires like a lot of like soft skill, like, you know, acquisition and getting even better. What's your perspective on that? Like, if you were to start over again, would you, and even pegging it from now, right? Like, do you feel like historically you've invested enough in yourself? And do you feel like, if I were to look at your bank account or your credit card statements over the last year, where are you at on a scale of 0 to 10 with investing in yourself?
Looking back, did I invest myself enough? No, absolutely not. After college, you know, I enjoyed the shore as much as I can every summer, where I'd hit 0 on my bank account bi-weekly almost. Not to say that I was splurging, but I was also making very little amount of money. I was living with my parents, but, you know, enjoying the beach a little too much, every weekend being at Parker House. You know, but when I hit 30 and I started working from home was when I started to turn a little bit. One thing I've always wanted to be in my life is bilingual. And that's where I started to hit the books, learning Italian. In college, I was in Sicily for an architecture project. And that's where I returned to the language and started to teach myself that. That was almost 7 years ago. And every day it's a struggle. Trying to stay as fluent as possible as I am in the language. Is that taking me anywhere? I don't know yet. You know, it's one thing I've been telling myself for years is to try improv classes, because that's a great soft skill for sales. Being able to work off the cuff. In one part, I think the first lesson you learn in improv is getting to yes, or is it you're never disagreeing with that person.
Correct.
And that's a bad habit that people have, is you hear a lot, yes, no, yeah, no, one of those things. And I don't know what the instinct is for us to constantly disagree with the person, but there's a lot of that aspect that people need to learn in sales and friendships. When you're building a relationship with a person, one thing I always learn is to, you know, learn from them as much as you're trying to teach them too. Give them those dopamine hits. People like to talk about themselves, and don't fall into that trap of being that person who just constantly is the person who just goes on, as I am right now, but works in this department, in this situation.
No, to your point, Daniel, on that, I'm sorry, Brendan, That's what I would urge everybody to think of. Like number one question, like Daniel D is saying or highlighting, and that you don't have the objections in your head right now and the fear, etc. Are you on the craftsman journey that your inner child knows you should be? If you feel like you should be the attorney, if you feel like you should be the philosopher and so on, are you actually doing that? And it's a simple fucking yes or no, right? Don't let your fear and your brain, your monkey mind talk you out of it. Like simple yes or no. Are you on it or are you not? And then from there, Brendan, to what you're saying, like, and this is in general for everybody, okay, spend 10, 15 minutes thinking about, okay, well, what would that look like if I were to get my ass back on that path? And what is the lead domino skill that I would have to acquire? And what course could I go and join? Brendan, to your point, improv comedy, by the way, I'd recommend for every human on earth, like quite literally. I think Matt and I probably spent, I don't know, I'm going to guess it was like $600 or $1,000. It was back in Philly like 15 years ago. Literally one of the best courses I ever took. Because yes, Brendan, to your point, it teaches that yes and rather than saying but or no, right? So yes, and we can do this. So Daniel D, let me throw it back over to you. If we were to play in this picture that you're painting and you saying, hey, you know, I'm making money in my career right now, but I really want to be doing this. What do you think the first step would be towards that, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot?
No, I don't mind. I think I might be patting myself on the back here, so this could be wrong.
Do it.
But for me, I think my first step, given those specific goals, is to kind of really tune into the I don't know, this could be dangerous advice for some people, but really tune into the inner voice that says things to you sometimes that you're like, that's crazy, or like that's an opinion that doesn't make any sense, or something like this. And, you know, there's a lot of gray area here because obviously your brain turns out a lot of dog shit that doesn't map onto the real world very well. But I think trying to split that apart from whether or not it fits into what's popular to think right now is a very different question, and one that's really hard to pull back from. One that's like, is this an acceptable thing to think right now, or to say, or to put out into a public arena? So I think just cultivating that that courage to go somewhere that, like, your brain, even to like maintain whatever social circles you're in, like, you probably should step back from this for now.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I think one of the ways of reducing the probability of that's actually like a thought error is like, hey, am I really intrinsically motivated to do this? And I agree with you, Daniel, and if I'm hearing you right, it is hard to tease out what's a gold shiny object versus what am I really intrinsically motivated to do. One of the ways that I have found of doing that is like, have I often wanted this in the past, and how far long ago? So it's like, oh shit, like I've actually wanted this since I was 10, right? And it's come up like on a weekly or monthly or quarterly basis since then, versus like, oh, that guy over there on the corner playing piano, that seems cool. It seems like those girls are looking at him. I want to do that. Do you know what I mean? Right? There is a model of teasing that out. Phil, let me throw the ball over to you. What's your perspective on this particular topic?
I'm sorry, I'm still just kind of unclear what the question.
So I would actually argue that you're kind of already on this, which is like anybody who's not pursuing what they really want to be pursuing, and we all kind of know what that is. And to Daniel's point of like, hey, sometimes that's going to be a shout in your mind. Sometimes it's going to work its way down to a whisper, but it's still there, if that makes sense, of knowing whether or not you're really congruent with what you ultimately want to be doing, and then ultimately making money from that, et cetera. So do you feel like you are on that path, right, that you're intrinsically motivated to do, and that you're contributing to society in a way that like is true to you, or are you off that path?
I mean, day to day, I'm off the path for sure. I was just starting to work on video game stuff yesterday a little bit, but I didn't even honestly work that. I got like maybe less than an hour in. And yeah, as always, as I've complained in here endlessly, like I don't know. I know what I want to do and I don't know how to make it happen. I don't know how to put in the work every day. That's always been my problem. So I'm not sure how to fix that.
Well, as always, right, I want to push against you on that in a good way. I like what you said. It's like maybe at a micro level of analysis, at any given time, I could catch you off the path, and perhaps even more likely than not. But on a macro level of analysis, you released the thing to the world via that video game that most people wouldn't have the balls to do. Do you know what I mean? Right? Like, so I think that's another piece of like the path is often muddy and jagged with failures and non-trial attempts. Ray, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that Phil is a champ at beating himself up while showing us the path simultaneously, right? Or say like he's like illuminating the path with the flashlight, telling.
Look, everyone, I mean, guys, I don't know. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but it's been almost 6 months since I released that game, and I've worked maybe.
I hear you. I hear you, man. And
I've barely worked since then. So,
I hear you, dude. And if you take your finger off the compliment gun trigger for a second, what I was going to say to Wes next was like, what comes to mind is like habits, projects, and
actions.
And actions. So I think that like the fact that Phil was able to release a game is one of those boxes, but it's there might be a he might need to rewire the habits or actions or part. What comes to mind for you, Wes? If we're going to analyze his situation, because I am Phil, I can absolutely relate.
Well, I think, and Brendan, I would love to get your perspective on this. It reminds me of that old Jim Rohn question of like, how many times do you give a baby to learn how to walk before you tell them to not try again? And I know it sounds so elementary to bring up like an example like that, because in my opinion, there's just certain things that it's like, well, I've got two paths. Either I stop trying because I can't emotionally accept my failure rate, or I say, I'm just going to do this thing because I love fucking doing it, and I don't care about the failure rate. And I'd rather have a beautifully chaotic relationship with that and go through all of the shit and like all of the dragging through the mud of my emotions, because then at least I'm engaged with life rather than just numbing myself and saying, I'm just not going to do that because I failed a million times and I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to work for Walmart because, that's just a more predictable path.
Look, so the thing is, the reason why I say this stuff is I'm not just criticizing myself like unfairly. Like the thing is, look, we all know that we all have known in our life, or at least probably know that it's possible to want something for like 60 years and never have worked for it, right? Like the guy that just talks about shit and never even takes like tiny steps towards, like that's a total possibility. And that's the possibility that I'm most of the time occupying. Like that's what I'm doing most of the time, is I'm thinking about doing stuff. I'm almost never starting and failing. If I were starting and failing, that'd be a different story. Most of the time I don't work even once, even for 1 minute a day, most of the time, like that's the problem. That's why I'm complaining about it. And that's why I'm like, and then, I'll feel bad about it, and then I'll get off this call and immediately go back to not giving a shit at all and not doing anything about it. So that's why when I've said this before, like I honestly wonder why the fuck I'm even on these calls, because like I feel like it's possible I'm just enjoying complaining and enjoying, getting attention here, because I seriously, as soon as the calls end, most of the time, I'm not working towards my goals. I'm not motivated to work towards my goals when I get off these calls. I'm just like, enjoying talking here and then getting off and just fucking off again, And it's like, I can't.
Phil, I don't think you're that, like, Phil, I hear you. And to be honest, I don't think you're that different. Pablo agrees. But does that mean these conversations are worthless? No. Does that mean your contribution is worthless? No. The following reason, like the alternative for guys like you and I is isolation, right? And very rarely does something good come out of isolation, right? So you're in community. That's an upside. Second of all, Phil, you haven't mentioned that maybe some of the stuff you're saying, complaining or whatever you want to call it, is helping someone else. Wes, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Phil knows the answer to this 100%. Right?
Yes.
Like,
also,
he hates us.
Look, I mean, I know I've said this, I've wasted your guys' time with this crap so many times. Like, I hate making you guys rehash this stuff. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to go. I don't mean to go. I'm not trying to take us down this road every fucking time.
No, Phil, what you're talking about is very relevant because, like, Daniel D was just saying, like, asking himself, when do I pursue my passion? When do I stop waiting tables, right? And so something that comes to mind for you and I, Phil, is like, for how long, and this is the wrong way to phrase it, but I just in like what comes to mind is like, how long do I have to be unsuccessful before I start to try, right? So the flip side of that,
yeah,
the flip
exactly.
side of that is like it's like a rock bottom idea, right? Like we do in 12-step recovery from drugs and alcohol or overeating or sex or whatever you're in recovery for out there. We have to hit a rock bottom, right? Where, we drink 40 beers in a day. We know it's bad. We drink 41 the next day. We drink 42 the next day. We should probably get off that train. But it's only when we hit 50 or 60 we lose it.
Some people are in AA for 40 years and they're still drinking, right? That happens a lot. That happens a lot.
I know
that happens a lot because my dad's been in AA for 30 years. And some people are they're not trying. That's the thing. Some people in AA are not trying. That's the thing.
Well, Phil, those people, if they're alive, is a miracle. Okay, first of all,
that's
break up this fight.
That's fucking dark.
I would add to this. I think it depends on how you're measuring like try.
Mm-hmm.
Does the guy who goes to church and then still commits sins outside of church, does it not count that he's going to church as like one of the points of like, hey, this is even if my try is just being open to a discussion of progress, right? Without making the physical progress. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, and Phil, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying like, that's my perspective. It's like, dude, if there's a part of my day where I just put on something in my ear just to increase my mindset a tiny bit, I know it's not me going and getting a new client, but that's one more drop in the bucket in the points of like, I'm on the path towards something rather than I could go fuck off and do whatever else. Brendan, let me throw the ball over to you. What's your perspective on this? Do you find it yourself, you beat yourself up often at times of like, don't feel like you're making enough progress, etc.? Oh yeah, you're on mute, brother. He says he's stuck on mute for some reason. While he figures that out, Arjuna, let me throw the ball over to you. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I wanted to hop on, have a little contribution just through my own experience between the last 24 hours of I really relate to what you're saying, Ray, about the rock bottom. I always have had to experience those in order to shift. And even just yesterday, like all these different things, or 2 days ago, all these things were happening. Lost my dab pen, fucking locked my keys in my car, and then my girlfriend had accidentally tore the handle off of the door. Like, it was just a comedy of errors. But then I woke up yesterday.
Off the door of your car?
Yeah, I was trying to open the truck door.
Is your girlfriend a gorilla?
Get the fucking coat hanger in. She's standing on it's a truck, so there's like the footstep. She's literally standing on the step and just pulling the handle to like open it and widen it. Boop! Just pull the whole fucking thing off. But at least then all the mechanisms were exposed. You could just pull the lever, open the door. So, I mean,
There's a silver lining mindset.
I mean, it is what it is. Well, that's what I was getting at though. Like all this shit, I realized, like, because I've talked about weed and stuff like that. That's my only, like, it holds me back in my ambitions. And so I felt like all of these things happened yesterday, the day before, and I woke up feeling this shift and being like, okay, I left my dad pen, this and that, and I'm like, well, I could always take the pursuits to continue the habits that I'm used to, or I could just take this. And I was vulnerable, I was sensitive, I was feeling these ways, you know, throughout the day of not being stoned, but then sleeping through that, waking up today, feeling clear. Like, I wonder, because I relate so much to Phil in these ways. Maybe I'm not so, like, emotionally, like, heavy about it, but I still feel very inactive in my pursuits. And I wonder if there's not just certain things in the daily activity and intentions that could be shifted that could just help in those ways. Just like, because it can feel so hard mentally, but then if you actually start changing the neural pathways with just very basic activities, I wonder if that could, like, help alleviate and shift things.
Yeah, I also wonder, like,
you're good.
When I look at certain creative individuals, whether it be like I don't know, Christopher Nolan, or, you know, you name the creative pursuit. I think Tim Ferriss actually talked about this. Like, he's like, actually, if somebody were to follow me around with a camera, they would find that I'm wildly unproductive, because his particular craft is like sort of like nothing mixed with like high level punctuated periods of success, and then going back into his cave, nothing, and then another punctuation mark. But Brendan, I want to get your perspective. You know, I don't know if you worked out the muting issue. Yeah, what's your take on this particular part of the conversation?
Yeah, I run into this still. Going back to the story of learning Italian, I put it off for a long time, and just wasn't doing the work. Like, just, you know, I would tell myself every afternoon after work, I'd go to it, and then I just wouldn't do it. And, you know, part of it was eliminating things that were taking up that time from my life. Sometimes I have to get rid of social media. Sometimes I have to get rid of, I don't think I have a drinking problem. And then I just go, I'm not going out on the weekends anymore. I'm not doing this. And then if I still find myself not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then it's not important to me, and I need to rearrange my goals. And as a Catholic, you know, when we go into Lent, you know, eliminating what you think is you know, bad for you, it's great to practice that, whether you're religious or not, is to say, okay, for 40 days, I'm putting this number ahead of me that I'm going to eliminate this from my life. And then at the end of the 40 days, you evaluate, is this really important to me? Is this not important to me? Do I feel better that I got rid of this, what I've been doing? And then it's constantly just going back and going, okay, do I care enough about this video game that I'm working on? Is there something else that's, you know, taking my you know, my attention? Or with it, learning languages, if you go on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of clickbait, how to, you know, learn. I bought a book that was how to learn a language in 3 months. It was an absolute ripoff scam. If you mention it on Reddit, people will just make fun of this guy. Unfortunately, I thought this was the way, and I got upset with myself that I wasn't learning fast enough until I actually spoke with somebody who has taught themselves a language and explained to me, that's not going to happen. Imagine, you know, how you think and you learn, and you have to understand this is a process. You're going to go up, you're going to go down. There's a graph that's level to mastery, and it shows you, like, the wins that you're getting. You're going to hit those ebbs and flows. Like, you're going to think, okay, I'm at A1. The next day, you're back at beginner level. Jiu-jitsu. I'm a 4-year white belt in jiu-jitsu. And I tell myself, do I care enough about this or not? How do I feel when I go there? Like, yeah, I feel like I suck every time I go, but, like, I'm constantly evaluating that too. You know, do I just let it go? Do I feel like a quitter afterwards? Phil, you know, I'd ask myself, do I want this or not? You know, is there something else that's taking my attention that I'm starting to care about more? Did I, you know, put faith in the wrong advice that I got? You know, somebody telling me to go down that path, and maybe that's why it's not working for me. I put a lot of faith in
Brendan,
telling me what to do.
Yeah, Brendan, to piggyback off of that, so I've got a friend who was on the path that he wanted to be. but the problem was he wasn't receiving the money, right? Like, and in particular, it was like that he almost felt a bit of FOMO, like he was on this other path, fully self-expressive to go after what he wanted, and in that monologue was almost like, I don't want to be like everybody else, right? But along his journey, he started getting a bit of FOMO of everybody else, you know? So then what he did, he and I had a conversation. And I told him, I said, hey, man, he's a really close friend of mine. I said, hey, just so you know, that thing that you feel like you're missing out on, I guarantee you at any moment you can go and plug back into normal people society. And you will be able to catch up within 6 months to a year, right? Which is a pretty small amount of time, right? Like he wanted like the house, the picket fence, right, in the neighborhood. He didn't want to live on like the coast, so it wasn't anything dramatic. And I think what he would tell you, so he bowed out of his path, right? Went and got those things literally within 6 months to a year, right? Now is kind of stuck there and wishes he could get back on the other path, but harder to get. Spectacular. Yeah, for those people who are just listening, I fucking Apple's iOS has these like real-time emoji things, so there's a whole bunch of fireworks just went off. Yeah, pretty theatrical way of.
And the best thing about it, for those of you who are listening, is that the context is way off. So if Wes is talking about the Holocaust or AIDS or slavery, balloons usually go up.
Yeah. So
But Wes, I love what you're talking about, which is the perils of not like following your calling.
And look, I think here's the other dirty little secret. Like, we don't get to remove ourselves from, what is it called? Like the Sisyphusian journey. You're either going to be Sisyphus on the standard track of just like pushing that ball up that big rock up the hill, and it's going to fall back down. If you're an accountant and you don't want to be, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to do the same fucking reports next week that you did this week. Or you get to pick the Sisyphusian journey on the track that you decide, but it's still going to be a fucking grind. And maybe it's what Phil's highlighting is like, hey, on that journey, it's an emotional grind because you feel like you're not fucking productive every day. You might not even feel productive every year, you know? So, but I don't think we get to pick a path that doesn't have the downside, like the Sisyphusian downside. Phil, what's your take?
It's been over 30% of the year already. That's pretty fucking crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess, you know, the main reason I'm so frustrated is because like I'm starting a new job soon, but you know, I'm not working right now. Well, I'm doing some random side jobs and stuff, but other than that, like I have like almost the entire day free most of the days, and I just waste it, and that's what's so demoralizing. I'm just wasting almost all my time. But I did recently get, because I entered my game into a festival, and I didn't win a prize, but I got honorable mention. So I'm able to join. They're doing some promotion thing soon in the next month, so I'm able to join that. Hopefully we'll get some more attention on my game, which is pretty cool. I don't know if anything will come out of that. We'll see. But that gave me a little bit of motivation to do some more work on it and have it ready for that.
Yeah, and Phil,
yeah, I don't know.
By the way, this is why I often want to tell you to go fuck yourself in a respectful way, is because you beat yourself up on here, right? And then you bury the lead of like, oh yeah, by the way, my game just got, you know, was input into this particular competition and it received accolades, et cetera. And I also have a job that I didn't tell you guys about. So brother to brother, man, you know, I think obviously you are your biggest critic by far. And I know that you know that. You know, and I know that you also probably know, right? Like, hey, yeah, could you be doing more? We all could be doing more. And I think, do we all measure ourselves on units of like time units of progress that don't necessarily reconcile with maybe what society would? Most people, dude, who are working a 9 to 5 can reconcile their units of progress on the 9 to 5 scale. But people who are on creative pursuits, you know, and I know you can't do that. And then it's like, yeah, then it's an argument of, well, what time measure do you reconcile it on? And that is like that's the agonizing journey. I think that we're both on to a certain degree. But anyway, I know you're being low key but congrats on those wins, brother.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, man.
I feel like we should end there. We got a hey thanks from Phil. I feel like that's a win.
Yeah, let's not screw it up.
Because I think in that hey thanks, there's a part of him that recognizes that like he did a good job for himself. Phil, if you don't mind me saying that right in front of your face.
No, I really appreciate it
for you, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Can you make some more fireworks or some shit go off? What was it? You did like this? Like, how is that an emoji's trigger? Like, what the?
I gotta learn them. I should.
Nice. Yeah, we got the fireworks. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Brendan, let me throw the ball over to you. Final words of wisdom, bud.
Count the wins, man. I didn't mention that before. That's what helps me too. Is those little bits of dopamine that keep you going. Constantly thinking that you're losing, you're just gonna end up losing and fall into that cycle. I mean, I get in my head all the time about it, but hey, good on you, Phil. That's awesome. That's huge.
Yeah, hell yeah, exactly. He's not gonna take it from me, but he knows it's true. Arjuna, final words of wisdom, buddy.
Always appreciate y'all. Got some goals coming up. I'm going to start my podcast today, and I got some accountability with an old neighbor where she has to sing online before the month's end, and I have to freestyle online. And so got a couple goals before the next meeting.
Oh yeah, brother. And feel free to post the podcast link on the Discord so the guys can check it out if they want to.
Sure. It's going to take a minute to figure all the tech stuff out. I still going to figure that.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, man. Ray, let me throw it over to you, buddy. Final words of wisdom.
Yeah, I just want to thank all my brothers for being on the call today. Welcome, Brendan. Welcome to the brotherhood. And
Daniel,
this is what we do.
Daniel M.
Yeah, man. We share wins and losses, and we kind of rally each other. And so I just love this group, man. Love this group. Love being here. Thank you, Wes.
Hell yeah, brother. Phil, let me throw it over to you, Beast.
Yeah, I'm going to change the habit of getting off this call and doing nothing, and I'm going to do some shit after this call, I guess. So.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and my final words, man, as always, dude, like I appreciate all of us on here who are willing to be vulnerable and actually tell the fucking journey. Right, of not just like, hey man, here's like the $1 million that I got, here's the private jet and so on. It's like, that's not the journey. We all know that's not the fucking journey, right? We're often sold it, but it's like the journey is like this. It's beautifully destructive, it's beautifully chaotic, and it's beautifully fucking agonizing. And I would not want it any different. So thank you, dudes. I love you guys. Thanks for all who came on. Thanks to the new guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Later.
Love y'all.